Chapter 10. Sometimes the Brigadier found that the doctor seemed to be taken over by a manic energy, which brushed aside all forms of normal behaviour. Their exit from the mortuary was a case in point. Talking what seemed to be a farrago of nonsense, although the Professor and Dr. Preble, forced by politeness to follow him to the front door, seemed to understand him. He suddenly darted back to fetch his handkerchief, waving away all offers to get it for him. The Brigadier was left with the two pathologists, listening to the distant voice of Tom. "Yes, well, I'm sorry about that. The thing is, Imogen, I wondered if you were free tonight. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry about that." Until the doctor returned, waving the missing handkerchief above his head, and swept the Brigadier out to Bessie amid a torrent of thanks and cordial farewells. "Get a move on," he hissed. "What's the rush?" said the Brigadier, falling back into his seat as the little car shot away like a Formula One at Brands Hatch. "I want to get away before they find out, of course." "Find out what?" "That I've nicked that hair." "Whatever did you do that for?" "I have a hunch we're going to need it," the doctor said, and refused to say another word. "Space World will be closing in 15 minutes' time. Please proceed to the main gate or to the car park. Space World will be closing in 15 minutes' time." The distant voice on the public address system could barely be heard in the hushed luxury of the chairman's room. "A very satisfactory day all round," said Freeth, as he inspected the returns from the box office. Tragan watched him inscrutably as he ambled over to the Sheraton sideboard and poured a quarter pint of crème de menthe into a crystal tumbler, topping it up with a dollop of Campari. "Nevertheless," he went on, sucking his teeth after a first luxuriant gulp, "it would be as well if you were to return to Paracon forthwith and take Fido and Fifi with you." "And if there's more trouble here?" "The only possible trouble would be if that soldier person," he continued disdainfully, "should manage to connect us with the death of the intruder. If you've removed the creatures, the problem can't arise." "I wish I could agree, Chairman Freeth." Freeth took another large sip of his greyish concoction. "The point is academic," he replied. "As you say, I am still the chairman, and I shall decide. The only other person who might have posed a threat has been dealt with. The doctor is dead." A single knock, and the door swung open to reveal the putative corpse, followed by the soldier person. For a moment, Freeth's jaw hung open, a little dribble of his cocktail trickling from the corner of his mouth. "Forgive us for barging in unannounced," said the doctor. "Your secretary seems to have gone home for the evening." Freeth quickly recovered. "I'm delighted to see you so hale and, one might almost say, hearty. We were given to understand that you'd left us." He wiped the trickle with the back of his forefinger and licked it off, with every appearance of enjoyment. "Space World will be closing in 5 minutes' time. Thank you for visiting us. Please tell your friends how much you've enjoyed yourselves. Space World will be closing in 5 minutes' time." "I say, Sarah Jane." "Shh! Keep still." Honestly, she'd have been better off by herself. But he'd pleaded, saying how good he was at keeping watch and saving her life and stuff, so she'd relented. And now she was stuck with him in the little service room behind the Camelius house, listening to the booming voice outside and waiting for everything to shut down. They'd incautiously peeped through the door and seen the Camelius lying down, chewing like a cow, and were just in time to catch the last visitors being ushered out. So it wouldn't be long now. "But I've got pins and needles. If you don't be quiet." Unit had refused to give her the Brigadier's home number, but they'd checked for her. He wasn't in Bessie either, because they had given her that one and she'd tried 3 times. So, she had decided that, Clorinda or no Clorinda, it was too good a story to pass up, and if necessary, she'd sell it to one of the nationals and... A voice in the Camelius's chamber. Jeremy was by now delivering himself a sort of sotto voce groan. She pinched his arm hard, and with a little eek, he subsided. Might be tomorrow night. Maybe still have got the chips on. See you. Oh, law, the voice was getting closer. She pulled Jeremy down behind a big grey metal box near the wall. The door opened, momentarily flooding the room with light. She could hear the footsteps coming towards them, the sound of a key, and the opening of a metal cover. Switches! The lid slammed shut. She involuntarily shrank back as she saw through the gloom the legs of a man passing less than 2 feet away. The outer door opened. There was a click of the snib on the lock, and the door slammed. Sarah gave a deep sigh of relief. "He's locked us in," Jeremy squeaked. "Oh, don't be so silly. It's a Yale lock. Come on, let's have a look." Still being careful to keep fairly quiet, she picked her way to the little door and opened it a crack. At first she couldn't see anything. The glare of the Aldebaran sun had gone, leaving the sort of nondescript twilight found in a cinema after the audience has left, and the attendants are clearing up the mess. She pushed the door wider. "Well, well, well," she said, stepping through. "It's all gone," said Jeremy. "Desert and everything." And so it had. There was nothing to be seen but a large hall with bare walls and a bare floor, littered with sweet wrappings and soft drink cans. "Switched off," she said. "They've just switched him off. No wonder he didn't come out on the film." The Brigadier had been content to listen as the doctor told of the anomalous discoveries made by the forensic pathologist. He did not intervene even when Freeth apologetically interrupted to tell Tragan to put in hand the arrangements they had been discussing before the arrival of their guests. He watched him go, wishing that he had enough hard evidence to tell him not to leave town, like a marshal in a western. Freeth, however, now turned to him. "I gather you've been having a little chat with an old friend of mine, Brigadier." "Sir?" "In New York." "Ah, yes, that's right. You'll no doubt be gratified to hear that your attempt to go to the top of the tree had borne fruit. I am, so to speak, a peach ripe for plucking." He smiled archly at the Brigadier. "A bit overripe." "Sir?" he said again. "We have agreed that I should keep no more secrets from you. In her own words, that I should come clean as the driven snow. I'm sure you recognize the style." He turned back to the doctor. "If I understand you right, you are suggesting that one of our little monsters from outer space escaped from the park last night and did the naughties. Well, since we're playing the truth game, let me tell you something." The doctor held up a hand. "I'll save you the trouble," he said. The Brigadier listened hard as the doctor launched into a highly technical explanation of how the creatures came to be there, ending with the words, "by means of a radiated matrix of modulated psychomagnetic beams." Was he saying they were mere hallucinations? "Indeed," he was going on to say, "the whole thing is really a more complex version of your experienced reality technology." He was. My, said Freeth. "Aren't we the clever clogs? I hate to admit it, but you have it exactly right. It's all an illusion." "Good heavens above!" exclaimed the Brigadier. "I could have sworn they were as real as my old basset hound." "If you tried to pat one of our little family," said Freeth, Your hand would go right through it. So how could one of them have harmed that poor fellow? But if those animals were a form of ER, thought the Brigadier, then the experience of them must have been recorded. Although they were only images, they must be the images of real creatures. This, apparently, was the point the doctor was making. I recognized your so-called crab-clawed camellias as soon as I saw it, he was saying. You recognized it? Said Freeth. Who are you, Doctor? Somebody who spent a long weekend on Aldebaran 2 a few years ago. Too long a weekend. The food was disgusting. A fat chuckle of agreement. Indeed. How many recipes are there for cactus pulp? So it was true. They weren't from Earth at all. You come from the other side of the galaxy, don't you? The doctor said quietly. It's a fair cop, said Freeth. I'll go quietly. What? He was admitting the whole thing just like that? You mean that you accept responsibility for the death? No. I have no idea how that poor young man died. Freeth glanced longingly at his drink, which stood half-finished on his desk. I was merely agreeing that I and my friends are, so to speak, an ethnic minority on your planet. Bit hard to swallow that there was no connection at all, the Brigadier thought. Something of a coincidence, isn't it? He said. I mean to say, a fellow killed by some sort of alien beast. And you admitting that you're aliens too. Brigadier, said Freeth, if you found a body that had been savaged by a tiger, would you arrest Mr. Patel from the corner shop? He had got a point, certainly. No, said the doctor dryly, but we'd certainly have a few questions for the proprietor of the travelling circus, which had just arrived in town. Freeth giggled. Touché, he said. Let me bare my breast and tell all, as I promised. Then you'll be in a better position to make a judgment. The Brigadier glanced at the doctor. His face was as cool and distant as it had been from the start of the interview. He gave no answer. We're not in the business of making judgments, Mr. Freeth, said the Brigadier. It's our job to get at the facts. And facts are what you shall have. But first, allow me to offer you a sherry. Or perhaps you would prefer a wee dram. For an alien from the other side of the galaxy, he managed a very plausible Scots accent. Jeremy was most impressed by Sarah's skill as a burglar. Luckily, all the back doors had Yale locks, so the well-known credit card technique, which she had first tried when she had locked herself out of her flat with packing to do, a train to catch, and a story fast escaping, had already given them entry via the tradesman's entrance to the residences of the thousand-legged zebroid, who, in fact, had a mere 128 if you bothered to count them on the poster, which Jeremy did while Sarah did the necessary, and the philosophical fwat. Neither was at home. On the other hand, it was all a bit scary. Apart from the fact that they were nearly caught by a roving watchman, when Jeremy had just reached the 126th leg, you never knew what might be lurking in the dark corners where the security floodlights didn't reach. He was beginning to regret volunteering. Why are we having to check them all? He whispered. If one monster's a fake, they all will be. Second rule of investigative journalism, she answered in low tones, as they peered round the corner to make sure the coast was clear. Never take anything for granted. That body on the heath wasn't torn up by the vicar's pussycat. There's something nasty in the woodshed. There must be. This wasn't at all reassuring. And what if we open the woodshed door and it jumps out at us? Scared? Yes. Of course I am. Sarah grinned and took off across the brightly lit avenue. He scuttled after her. "What's the first?" he said, as he caught her up at the back door of the flesh-eating Griffin's house. "Eh? The first rule of investigative journalism." "Oh, that," she said, starting on the lock. "Get your expenses sorted out." The Griffin was as inhospitable as his co-stars, the blue-finned belly flopper and the vampire teddy bear having proved no better. Jeremy found his fear rapidly turning into boredom. When Sarah, deciding that to check all 21 monsters was perhaps being over-scrupulous, changed the immediate aim of her quest and started looking inside the rides in Yuri Gagarin Avenue, his insides were churning so much that he couldn't stop himself complaining again. "I don't know why we're looking inside all these spaceship thingies. I mean, they never pretended that they were anything but simulations all the time." "That's right," answered Sarah, as she came out of the flight to the edge of chaos, closing the door with a gentle click. "But we didn't see inside all of them, did we? Perhaps they're using one of them as a kennel." "Shh," she added, drawing back into the shadows. Jeremy peered over her head down the avenue. 2 men were coming towards them from the direction of the central square. As they approached, he could hear what the very thin one was saying. "And be prepared to return at once to pick up Chairman Freeth. He may need to leave in a hurry." "Yes, Vice Chairman Tragan." "It's that one who took Mr. Grebler away. I'm going to follow him," Sarah breathed into Jeremy's ear as the men went by. She started to move forward. "No, wait!" hissed Jeremy, grabbing her arm. "They're stopping!" They had stopped by the last spaceship, on the opposite side of the avenue. Jeremy could still just hear them. Tragan was speaking again. "Shouldn't we feed the guards before we go, Crestin? You know what they can be like when they're hungry." As his companion replied, he held out an arm towards the spaceship. The doors slid back, and the 2 figures were silhouetted against the brightness from inside. "They've had 2 cats apiece, a Labrador and a Cocker Spaniel," said Crestin. "They're quite satisfied." "They don't sound very satisfied to me," responded Tragan, as he led the way inside. And, indeed, faintly across the deserted way, they could hear an unearthly howling. "The rotten lot," said Jeremy. "What did I tell you?" said Sarah, ferreting in her pocket. "Here, take this." "What is it?" "I wrote down the Briggs phone numbers. You go and ring him. Get in here ASAP." "But how much? For Pete's sake, get a move on." Before Jeremy could stop her, she was gone, sprinting across the broad avenue, up the ramp and into the ship. And as Jeremy watched in paralyzed horror, the doors slid smoothly closed behind her, leaving no crack of light to show that there was anybody inside.